Welcome to my favorite part of the show where we get to interview some of the greats that we have had when it comes to Notre Dame football. And there are few as great as our next guest, a former golf buddy of mine at an NFL, at a Notre Dame alumni tournament, but a 17-year veteran in the NFL at quarterback, a Super Bowl champion with the Cowboys, and a starter as a freshman for Notre Dame at quarterback. Please welcome the magnanimous Steve Beuerlein. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the magnanimous part, especially. I've never been introduced that way, at least not with a word that big before.
Hey, man, we're Notre Dame guys. We got to show off our education,
That's right.
Let's just start at Notre Dame. You and I share something in common. Our freshman year, both of us started our fourth game of the season. Take us back to what that was like, a young 18-year-old getting your first start at the mecca of college football.
Well, I'm reflecting back. It's been a few more years for me than it is for you to reflect back on that. But the fourth game of the year was the game I got put in the second half for Blair Keel, who was a preseason All-American and a guy that everybody had high hopes for. But the season did not start off the way it was supposed to. And so Jerry Faust threw me in out there in the second half of that game against Miami on national television. And even though we didn't do much in terms of scoring, the team kind of came to life. And I think Jerry liked the way that the team had responded to me. And he called me in the day after the game, going into the fifth game of the season, and said the seniors and a lot of the leaders on the team came up to me and told me that they really feel like you should be the starting quarterback for this team now. And so we're going to go with you. And it hit me like a sledgehammer over the head. I did not expect it to happen that freshman year. Everybody told me that, if I was lucky, I'd be starting by my sophomore year. But, things have a way of kind of, going a little bit askew from what you plan. And that was one great example of it. And we hit the ground running. It was a blur. They protected me as best they could from all the national media as an 18-year-old kid in that position. But I enjoyed it. There were a lot of bumps along the way, but I felt like I could play, and I felt like I at least handled myself pretty well, all things considered, given the difficulty and the magnitude of the situation I found myself in.
Well, when you look at your entire Notre Dame career, what are some of the moments on campus, off campus, on the field, off the field? What are a couple of those moments you really think back to when people ask you about Notre Dame?
Well, I remember my freshman year, the winter of my freshman year. And I remember wearing my Letterman's jacket around campus. And I just remember, being an 18-year-old kid from Southern California, walking around on the ice at Notre Dame in January, February, feeling kind of like a fish out of water and how to deal with life in the Midwest. And also my new life as the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. People were whispering and pointing me out. And I remember one specific time there was a cute girl that I had my eyes on, and she was coming out of O'Shaughnessy Hall. And I caught her. She was about 34 yards away from me, and I was trying to be Mr. Cool with my Letterman's jacket on. And guess what happens when I get about 10 yards from her? I hit an ice patch, and I end up on my back with my books flying straight up in the air. And she just giggled as she walked on by and asked me if I was okay. But not the impression I wanted to make on her. But, everybody was talking about, hey, that's a freaking Notre Dame quarterback on his back laying on the ice out there. So, the rest of it kind of took care of itself. I got used to it and adapted to it pretty well, and realized the honor and the expectation that was going to be bestowed upon me just by being in that position. And I did my best to try to wear that mantle well. And unfortunately, we didn't have a whole lot to show for it over the course of the 4 years, but I wouldn't change a thing. I don't regret the decision I made to go to Notre Dame by any stretch.
Now, when you talk about your NFL career, let's get into that. I mean, in 1999, you threw for over 4,000 yards before people started doing it regularly, right?
Back when it was difficult.
Yeah, back when it was hard, you could hit the quarterback, land on the quarterback, slap linemen in
Exactly.
the helmets. I mean, you got to just laugh at how much they protect quarterbacks now. But getting into the NFL, I mean, a lot of people watching, they know how Notre Dame prepared them to be a professional in their life. How did Notre Dame prepare you to be a professional in the NFL?
Well, Ryan, as you know, there's to make it in the NFL for any extended period, you're going to go through some highs and lows, and if you don't know how to deal with those situations, both good and bad, not getting too high with the highs and not getting too low with the lows, you're going to struggle and you're not going to make it most likely at that level. And I think the adversity that I went through my 4 years at Notre Dame, as I said, it was a pretty bumpy road, and we don't have time to get into all of it, but I think that prepared me well, and it also, I think, uh, you know, prepared me to. And I came into the NFL wanting to prove myself and
Mhm.
wanting to show that I was able to step up and take advantage of the opportunity if it was presented to me. And I think the national spotlight, all the expectations, in dealing with the media, I think it allowed me to show myself as a leader and to be confident in that role as a leader. And I think that everywhere that I played, all six of the teams that I played in the NFL, I think that was one of the main reasons why I always had a job. Coaches knew that I was a good locker room guy, that I was a leader, that I was going to make the right decisions, that I was going to be prepared, and that if things did get going south a little bit, that I was the kind of guy that could keep it together and keep the team together, and keep them focused on what's in front of us and what's the right way to handle things. So I credit my Notre Dame experience with giving me the ability to handle those situations.
Well, let's talk about one of your bright spots. You won the Super Bowl, Troy Aikman and others on the Cowboys. What was that year like?
Well, that was a magical year. I mean, it's the same. I'm sure that the '88 team felt going on the road to or on the run to their national championship, where you just kind of reflect back on, and it's not anything that you think about while it's going on. You don't think about how special your team is while you're in pursuit of that dream. You just know that in order to win a championship, you have to be 100% together. Everybody's got to be on the same page. There's got to be a chemistry and a unity in that locker room. You have to get lucky in terms of injuries. You have to get lucky in terms of the balls bouncing the right way in key situations, getting the right calls in key situations. But we had all those things happen for us during that 2002 season with the Cowboys, and it just seemed like we believed as the year went along that we were destined to win the Super Bowl. And you know how important that is. You've got to really believe that you belong there and that you're entitled to have that success. And as we went along during the course of that season, we really believed it. And every time we stepped foot on the football field, we felt that we should win that football game. And when we look back on it now, whatever, how many years it's been since that time, 28, 29 years, you realize that teams like that just don't come along very often, where everybody bought in, everybody got along, everybody was on the same page, and it resulted in a championship. So very, very special team that we had at that point.
Now, many people as well, if you go to Notre Dame, chances are you'll be extremely successful. But you were successful as a quarterback, a leader, but you also had to produce. So, for those who may be in that same position right now, how do you be great while expected to be great? How do you create your own expectations to be successful beyond others' expectations?
I think that comes from within. I don't think it's something that you can really coach a person to really have high expectations for themselves. You can help kind of condition them that way, but certain people are just born with the ability, I believe, to elevate themselves. And there's going to be people along the way that impact them and that help them get there. Like I know for me, Coach Holtz was one of those guys that um, he broke down a lot of people because he was very demanding on us. But at the same time, if you could handle the demands that he placed on you as a football player and as a person, you knew you were going to come out better because of it. And I just think that to achieve greatness in anything, it has to come from a confidence within yourself. And again, maybe people help you bring it out of yourself, but if you don't believe in yourself, I always tell people when I'm giving a speech or giving a talk, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody will. I mean, think about this: when a quarterback steps in a huddle, and if he doesn't have the confidence in himself, and he's looking you in the eye, you can see that, you
Yeah.
can feel it, you can tell if that guy believes in himself, and if he is expecting to lead the team down the field. And if you don't have that ability to inspire others to trust you, then you're not going to be successful at that level. And it doesn't happen if you don't believe in yourself.
Well, you're absolutely right too. I mean, when you have an inexperienced, unconfident quarterback, the play call sounds like 22 scat seam snow wide over versus hey, let's go boys, 22 scat seam snow on one, ready break. I mean, you can hear it in the voice and the delivery. Now, I ask this with every Coach Holt's player. What's your favorite Lou Holtz story?
Oh man, I got a bunch of them now. I got a bunch of them. I would say that the first one, I'll give you the abbreviated version for the sake of time, but it was the first meeting I ever had with Lou Holtz, and I didn't expect to be named the starting quarterback because of a really poor junior year that I had. I played the full season with a shoulder injury that I should not have been out there for, and Jerry Faust would not let me redshirt, and so I had a terrible year. Didn't expect to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame with Lou Holtz coming in. I thought he'd want to start with a younger guy and kind of start building for the future. But he told me that I was going to be the guy. And the way he told me, he said, Steve Beuerlein, you are going to be my quarterback at the University of Notre Dame. He goes, how do you feel about that, son? Of course, I said, this is great, coach. I mean, really, are you serious? He goes, yes, sir. We got a young man by the name of Tim Brown on the outside, and he's pretty good. And you're the only guy that can get the football to him. And he said, I'll tell you something else, Beuerlein. We are going to throw the football more than I feel comfortable throwing the football. And I promise you that you will not throw more than 6 interceptions the entire season. And I said, Coach, this is like too good to be true. I'm going to be the quarterback. We're going to throw the football, and we're going to have success. And I'm not going to throw interceptions. But how do you know that? I mean, how do you know that won't happen? He said, oh, trust me, Beuerlein. I know these things. You don't need to know. I just know these things myself. You don't have to worry about that. And I said, Coach, I need to know. Is it the system? What is the deal? He goes, well, if you need to know, Beuerlein, as soon as you throw interception number 6, you're done playing for me. You're going to be on the bench. So don't worry about that. So that was how I met Lou Holtz. And it ended up being the best thing truly that ever happened to me. And if it was not for him coming into my life at that point, I don't think I would have had a chance to go on and play in the NFL.
Well, what a way to speak that into existence or set the standard, I think they would say there. That's great. Now, one more on football. Speaking of head coaches, you and I got to play for the same coach in Mike Shanahan. He was just added to the Ring of Fame in Denver for his 2 Super Bowls. He drafted me in one of his last draft classes. You got to reunite with him at the Broncos at the end of your career. Tell us about Mike Shanahan and what you learned playing for him.
Well, the only thing that could have been more perfect for Mike Shanahan would have been if the Broncos had beaten the Raiders, because as I was with Mike Shanahan when he was head coach of the Raiders, and Al Davis treated both of us, but specifically we're talking about Shanahan, treated Shanahan very poorly. He got fired after 20 games as a head coach of the LA Raiders. And I think for the Broncos to step up and win against the Raiders on Sunday would have been the best case scenario. But
yeah,
I learned so much from Mike Shanahan. I started my NFL career with him, and I ended my NFL career with him. We're still very good friends to this day. There's very few people that I respect more than I respect Mike Shanahan. And as a coach, what I loved about him most was that he was fearless. He was an aggressive play caller. He trusted his players in the key moments of games to step up and make a play. He wasn't going to take the safe, conservative route. He was always going to go for the jugular. And as a quarterback, that's what you want, a coach that trusts you, that believes in you, and it's going to give you a chance to throw the dagger when you got the chance to throw the dagger into that opponent. So I love Mike Shanahan, and I'm very proud of him, and he deserves it very much.
Now, lastly, Steve, an amazing career, and I had a blast when we were golfing with each other about 4 or 5 years back. You're just so easy to talk to, and you've got so much insight. But what does it mean to you to be a Notre Dame alumni?
What does it mean to me? That's a hard thing to define. I do know that it has shaped me outside of my parents and my brothers, my immediate family, the way I was raised. And I was very fortunate to be raised in a great environment. The Notre Dame experience has shaped me, more impactfully than anything else in my life. And I mean it when I say this every single day. At some point, I thank God for giving me the opportunity to experience Notre Dame, and it's because of my life after Notre Dame. You realize what it means to be a Notre Dame alum after you graduate and after you get out into the real world. And again, everybody's going to deal with adversity, whether you're an athlete or not. You're going to deal with adversity. And the one constant that's always come through, I mean, and I can say this without a doubt more times than I can ever possibly, count. Every single time I've asked a Notre Dame person to step up, they have, whether I know them or not. I mean, maybe it's a person that I've been directed to who I've never had an experience with before. They always step up for you once they know and once you create that Notre Dame bond. And it's unlike anything else. I'm grateful for it. And it definitely impacts me every day of my life.
Well, thank you, Steve, for your impact on Notre Dame. Thank you for being such a great leader. Congratulations on being a champion. Congrats on a fantastic career. And thank you for joining us today.
I love it, Ryan. Anytime you want to get together, I'm happy to do it. Take care.
Go Irish.
Go Irish.